You want me to put that on my Tudor?
This one's wife. She's cracking under the pressure. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. According to Ketsuda Futinain from the Daily Record, this one's wife's weight loss sparks fear something is seriously wrong. The 42-year-old is said to have lost weight in recent months, and a source says people close to this one's wife are concerned. A source reportedly close to the Duke and Duchess of Sussex has revealed fears about this one's wife's health. The 42-year-old is said to have lost weight in recent months, and a source speaking to In Touch Weekly says people close to this one's wife are concerned. The source says this one's wife is cracking under all the pressure and isn't herself, suggesting she is hard at work, funding the couple's lifestyle, reports the Mirror. Something's seriously wrong. She's obviously not taking care of herself and is looking scary skinny. This one's wife is cracking under all the pressure, and it shows, the source claimed. The pair left royal life behind in 2020 in hopes of a brighter future, but the source says her troubles have only gotten worse. Suggesting why the mum of two may be struggling, they said this one's wife was blamed for Harry's estrangement from his family. However, the source pointed out it was actually Harry's idea to leave the firm behind. They also claimed the couple is facing money problems, with bills piling up. It comes after Harry and this one's wife were axed from their $20 million Spotify deal earlier this year. The source told the publication, "This one's wife feels like she's constantly having to hustle to afford her and Harry's lifestyle. She's struggling to balance her time with them as well. She has a lot on her plate." It is claimed that Harry is aware that this one's wife is not herself and fears she will suffer the way his mother, Princess Diana, Princess of Wales, did with bulimia. The source claimed Harry is considering moving to New York to help this one's wife. While Harry is up for the big move, this one's wife doesn't seem as keen, with another source suggesting she has been unconvinced. This one's wife's so happy to finally be back in California, she can't imagine leaving. For her, it's Hollywood all the way right now. It would make zero sense to move. Well, speculation there that the weight loss, which is notable of this one's wife, is as a consequence of her being under considerable pressure. Let us examine that, and to do so, we, as always, consider her narcissism in relation to all of this. Her narcissism allows her to behave in a particular way, where she's not embarrassed or ashamed of anything. It powers her with a sharpened elbow, sticking her nose in fortitude, to enable her to control people, to draw fuel from them, to acquire those character traits, and go after the residual benefits, which of course includes money. Therefore, on the face of it, pressure is something that doesn't necessarily appear to bother a narcissist. The fact that people will be talking about her is simply fuel to her. The fact that they are having some money difficulties, well, they don't have any actual careers. We know that they've got substantial overheads with regard to the mortgage, security costs, PR puff pieces, paying for staff, paying for an extensive wardrobe, and therefore that brings with it a particular pressure. However, it's often the case that many narcissists simply poo-poo that. They kick the can down the road, believing something will turn up. And ultimately, as I've explained elsewhere, that may well prove to be one of the factors that causes disengagement as a consequence of Harry's inability to bring more bacon home, that she ends up looking elsewhere and finds somebody else that's far wealthier than Harry, and therefore she cozies up to that individual instead, There, of course, have been rumours previously that she has been sniffing around a couple of billionaires. Naturally, this is something that a narcissist would do, for she has no care or concern about Harry. He is simply an appliance that is there to be used, and at the moment, because he's in the sustained devaluation, he's painted black. But it isn't the case that she's actually feeling pressure. Well, yes and no. Dealing with the no, she doesn't really see it as the pressure, but rather it's the subconscious threats to control that are posed by the repeated criticism of what she does and the financial pressures. Having a lot of money provides financial freedom. You're able to do what you want. You have a place to live, you can afford transport wherever you want to go, all your bills are paid, you can use it in a form of bribery to assert control, you can afford to buy whatever you want, and therefore there are no constraints upon you. But when that money starts to dry up, and particularly for somebody who likes to spend in the way that this one's wife does, the absence of money amounts to a threat to control, and therefore that will manifest as a sense of anxiety and concern for her. Furthermore, she is criticised on a daily basis, purely as a consequence of her own behaviour, purely as a consequence of the poor conduct that she engages in. But she will be aware of that as a consequence of her need to look at the news and social media. And it's like lots of tiny little arrows being fired at her and landing upon her. Threat to control, threat to control, threat to control, threat to control, threat to control. And with each one that lands, invariably they provide some fuel for her, so she's not in a fuel crisis. But there is that threat to control which her narcissism then has to deal with. Like a background app, it suddenly flares into life to address these threats to control. And for the most part, it does so either by causing her to do so indirectly with a PR puff piece, or issuing a pity play to Harry or a member of staff around her, or she just dismisses them. Oh, they're just the haters and the racists, and as a consequence of that, she just brushes it to one side. But nevertheless, the existence of each of those threats is, if you will, using up some of the narcissism's energy. And therefore, because they are coming thick and fast, and they're numerous, and they happen each and every day, on top of the threats to control that she has from her own personal interactions, this actually starts to become rather draining. She's getting plenty of fuel, because she has her own, if you like, personal fuel matrix around her: Harry, her mother, the children, the staff, paid-for friends. And then there's the wider fuel matrix of the public. Her supporters, her detractors, all provide fuel, both positive and negative, and challenge fuel. But the fact is, because she faces these repeated threats to her need for control, it does start to become draining upon her, because there is such a multitude of them. She always gains the control, as I've mentioned, either indirectly or by staying in a position of withdrawal. But there is a different form of pressure. Now, has this caused her weight loss? It's believed that she's utilising Ozempic, which has caused the weight loss. But it could potentially be that the anxiety that is generated by these threats to control is translated into her not eating, and that it is a consequential impact of that. So whilst the article talks about the pressure that she feels, they don't know specifically that it's as a consequence of the threats to control to her narcissism, which is then causing her to feel drained, which is causing anxiety, which in turn could lead to her not eating as a collateral consequence of those threats to control, and that has led to the weight loss. Or it may simply be the case that as a consequence of her vanity, she's been taking Ozempic, which sits alongside these threats to control. And while she's been experiencing anxiety as a consequence of these threats to control, that has not led to her skipping meals. It's the Ozempic that's done that. But ultimately, once again, you're given clear insight into why she behaves as she does as a consequence of understanding her narcissism. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.